Welcome, everyone, to Music Junkies, a podcast about people sharing extraordinary stories about how music has impacted their lives.
Welcome, everyone, to Music Junkies. I'm your host, Annette Smith, and today's guest is Indiana Gregg. And I'm actually pretty excited to sit here and chat with you a little bit. You've had like an incredible journey so far, right? You've been a singer, you're a businesswoman, you're an entrepreneur, you're a CEO, you're a founder of Wedo. You've did so much, and I know you have so much more that you want to do. I've read a lot of your story, listened to a lot of your interviews, and you're an amazing woman. So I'm really excited to dive deep and go over your playlist. And I just want to welcome you to Music Junkies.
Total pleasure to be here. I'm excited too.
So it's funny, we got a little bit of a time difference. You are all the way across the country or state.
I'm in another continent right now. I'm in Spain.
Oh, are you really?
I'm across an ocean. Yeah. Yeah. But I'll swim over there to see you at some point.
I've never been to Spain. I've always wanted to be. I've never been.
Oh, well, you have to come over and do a podcast here.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Berkeley's just up the road, the Berkeley extension in Valencia.
Yeah, that would be incredible. I know we talked a little bit about you're putting your playlist together. How was that experience for you?
Oh my God, it's really tough for you to put someone on the spot like that because, I'm 50, so I've had a reasonably long life, and I'm really grateful for it. And I think sometimes you associate certain tunes or certain musics to inflection points in your life. And there were times when music was a catalyst, and there are times when music inspired your work or inspired your, your songwriting. So it's very difficult to pinpoint songs, but the ones that stuck out, I think I admire those artists and the message, and they kind of push back sometimes of some of the songs that we end up choosing.
I know it is super hard to pick 10, but did you find yourself going down a little bit of a rabbit hole? Like, oh, this song led to this and this song led to that?
Well, you know what it is, right? I go on YouTube and then you're automatically in a rabbit hole there, right? Anyway, and you're like, oh man, hang on. This one by Marvin Gaye. Hang on. Whoa. Right? Haven't heard of, Aretha Franklin for a really long time, and then you get caught up, and then you're trying to look for some things that were more modern. So I'm like shifting to the 80s, and then I'm looking at the 90s and the noughties and giving it, wow, you can actually, it's kind of crazy how music affects culture. It affects maybe the clothes you wore, the style, the way you looked, the type of people you hung around. And it really takes you down a journey. And I'm one of these people that I can't do something halfway. So like if I'm going to invest my time in figuring out what those songs are, I need to like really, think about it. Right. So it was a long walk down memory lane, I guess.
I love it. And then now you're on YouTube, and now you're watching those old videos, and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Those are not good videos.
Right. Look at the quality. What's that all about? Now that we have like high def to the extension of high def, like where people have TVs in their homes that are bigger than some people's houses, it's ridiculous. So
it is.
Yeah, the megapixel changed everything, didn't it?
It totally did. We're gonna start with your first song. Are you ready?
Okay.
All right. Here we go. Phil Collins in the air tonight.
Yeah.
Why do you love that song? What memory does that bring up for you?
Well, when he goes, when you told me you were drowning, I had a car when I was at university. I think I was a junior, and it was just after final exams. And I had all my books. I was kind of moving back home for the winter break, and I had all my books in the back of the car. And I was driving up an old country road. And earlier in the day, the road had been blocked off. But I noticed it wasn't blocked off anymore, even though it was still pouring down rain. And I ran straight into a flash flood. And so there was a river, kind of like a small creek, really, but we called it a river, and that had overflowed the bridge, and the bridge was quite low over the river. And I went straight into that water, like straight into it, because you couldn't see anything. I had my lights on, but it looked like glass. So I thought, I'm just gonna have to be careful, leave it cold. I was driving as if I was driving on an icy road in the Midwest in the United States, and my car went underwater. And it was about that time in the late 80s, early 90s. It would have been 1990, 1989, 1990. It was about that time when cars began to have electric locks. And so if you're underwater, your locks, they're done.
Yeah.
The electricity, and luckily this car had a sunroof, and I was able to push it open, and water's pouring in. And I'm bringing, what is it called? Berman's leather, right? The leather shop where you get the big long trench coats and everything. I had one of these big long leather trench coats, like the gangsters wore, basically, that everybody was wearing at the time in the 80s, because leather was the cool thing to do. And I had that on, and I was climbing out of the roof, and that song was on the radio, and it just stopped because all the electricity was done in this car, and it was freezing. And I got out, and I waited, kind of under the water. It was about up to my chest level. And I got out, and about a mile and a quarter up the road, got to someone's house, knocking on people's doors. And it was actually New Year's Eve, when I was driving back from the dorms. And somebody let me in. I made a phone call. And then I went to this New Year's Eve party, and my car is left there. And, I was a kid, right? I was like, what do I do with this car, right? It's dangerous. So I ended up telling the parent that was at this New Year's Eve party that owned the house, hey, my car's underwater. What should I do? And he's like, are you crazy? You didn't call the police. You didn't call anybody. It's I didn't know what to do, right? I was a kid. We didn't have mobile phones and different era. So that's what happened. And that song was playing, and it was and if you tell me you were drowning, and I was like,
you're like, what the fuck?
Trying to get out of this car. The water's rising up.
That's
So
crazy.
that's that song. It was random, really random, that was on the radio, but yeah.
So obviously you ended up towing the car out of there.
Yeah,
Parents were super excited.
The guy and waiters came. We ended up driving out there. The guy and waiters came. They were like, we can't save your car. We'll just have to wait till the water goes down. We put a block on the road, and then they put another block closer to where that bridge was or whatever while we were there with, some flashy lights, neon things or something. But yeah, it was, I was in big trouble. My dad wasn't very happy. But it was Phil Collins, so.
How'd you like growing up in the 80s?
I think the 80s were a ball. I think it was a lot of fun. It was a different world, people weren't stuck to their mobile phones, and we bought magazines, and we were still in that kind of transition between the cassette tape and, late 80s when the CD first arrived, and nobody wanted to buy them. And some of us still had 8-track tapes, and we were still making mixtapes for our boyfriends or our pals and things, for graduation, the mixtape for your pal who's graduating or whatever. I think that we had a lot more fun. You were going to the shopping malls. You were playing miniature golf. You were, going to the Dairy Queen or whatever, the Tasty Freeze or whatever it was, in your town. And, it was innocent. No one was particularly worried about drugs or being gunned down or anything like that. So it's just a wonderful, wonderful time.
So take me back to the 80s. What are some crazy outfits you wore? Were you into stirrup pants? Did you wear?
I think I wore just about everything, because cheap and cheerful shopping, right? So you just kind of wore what you thought was trending. The Madonna look was in, the neon look, the lace gloves. I remember in the 80s, probably 8th or 9th grade, right? When we all had these necklaces and the Madonna look. Do you remember parachute pants?
Yeah.
Oh my God. That was so ridiculous, right? Everybody's like, oh, there's zips everywhere. It's amazing, right? And everybody was buying these really weird nylon parachute pants. It was, yeah, we were crazy. And then you'd wear socks with like weird
More
shoes.
socks.
Yeah.
Jelly bean shoes. I remember the jelly bean shoes.
Yeah.
And I remember just like the stirrup pants with like 3 things of socks. And then, cotton was kind of big late 80s.
Oh, and leg warmers.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was fame. I'm going to live for it.
It's like Madonna / fame / whatever, really. The more clothes you like.
Cyndi Lauper.
Yeah, anything and everything that you could get your hand. Bracelets. I remember like so many bracelets, like up
And
to
the
your
giant
elbow.
earrings, the
Yeah.
big chunky plastic earrings, right?
And
That
the big
was-
belts,
yeah.
the fun big belts where you're like,
Yeah.
I did a
And the bouffant
podcast.
hair. Everybody had like
Yeah.
teased out hair. It was like we looked so funny. I think we all thought we were kind of space age. And the shoulder pads.
Yes.
And the kind of Michael Jackson jackets, with the big
Did you crimp your hair or did you wave your hair?
I like used a curling iron and boofed it.
Did
Like
you?
I was like with my comb, like, really like teasing it out. Like, and then you cut your hair kind of short in layers and like you make it teased out and stuff, and like hairspray for like forever. Like we probably were gonna have like lung disease because of all the hairspray that we used back then.
What was your favorite 80s band back then?
Oh man, I had a lot. There were, God. I mean, I adored Queen still back then. The We Will Rock You was like the anthem of every high school band, right? I loved Queen. I really did. I think there are a lot of kind of Boise bands that came out at the time. Wham. Wham was big in there, like kind of in my teen bopper years. I loved Wham. I was like, Floyd. It was really cool. George Michael was epic. And then when he came out with Faith on the guitar, it was like, I'm in another world. He was amazing. I think, the Culture Club were hilarious. I love them. And Adam Ant, that whole kind of romantics kind of era of the 80s. I guess I was towards the mid 80s when it was like Karma Chameleon and Granny Loved Boy George and everything. I thought he was brilliant. Definitely Wham. I love them. The whole kind of MTV thing. Like I loved the Police. I guess I liked a lot of British bands at that point.
Yeah.
I didn't really shift. I mean, I loved Guns N' Roses, but for me, they were more late 80s into the 90s. I really associate them more with the 90s, even though their music was out probably 88, 89, that time frame. NXS.
Yeah, I loved NXS.
Yeah, I love them. ABC.
Did you have
NXS.
any male posters on your wall? Do you remember any?
I did. Yeah, I had everybody. I had all the new romantics and like Billy Idol and my mom hated it because I grew up like in a really Midwestern Christian family, and so rock music or pop music was kind of seen as you shouldn't really be doing that. It was kind of like the Footloose kind of story, right?
Yeah.
Burn the books and
Yeah.
but so I got away with it. I only got in trouble once. I went to a rated R movie. It was Prince.
Purple Rain?
Yeah.
No way.
Oh my God, I got in so much trouble for going to that movie. I think I got grounded for like 3 days. And then my mom made me go to some Christian rock show that was going on. And I was like, look, Mom, it's Prince. Like, this just isn't sexy.
Yeah.
I'm giving it. So, Prince, I was really a big fan of Prince. I loved him. I just think he's musically insane.
Yeah, I agree. I love it.
It was brilliant.
All right, your next song. I used to listen to these guys all the time. Give to Be Square, Huey Lewis and the News. I had this cassette tape.
I loved it. I loved him. He just cracked me up. He reminded me And there's something about Huey Lewis in the News, and then like something that reminds me of like Mel Gibson. There's some sort of weird association between those two guys, in my mind or in my memory of the times. And I just really adored the lyrics. I loved Hip to Be Square, kind of, because I was a kind of a geek, and I was in my own space. I was a bit of an introvert. I had a speech impediment, so I was kind of slow to really express myself, except through clothes or, being, getting into music or getting, like I was in like kind of the nerd squad in a lot of ways in school, to a point. It wasn't until I went to university and nobody knew who I was that I kind of flipped the lights went on. I thought, oh, here I have some liberation. But I was a bit reserved and somewhat, I guess, sheltered. When I was in school, high school and junior high, I wasn't allowed to do a lot of stuff that the other kids were allowed to do. So I love the lyrics of the song. I just thought, yeah, you get it. So I think that just has an emotional attachment, and it's kind of a happy music kind of vibe. Like everything they did was really, it made
Upbeat.
you feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun.
So you said you grew up with a speech impediment.
Yeah.
And then I was reading a little bit about your therapist asked you to write poems to help you with your speech impediment. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, one poem was about a rabbit, but she made me you had to talk about what you were drawing. So it was like an Eskimo's house, and eventually it turns into a rabbit. So you would draw like a C up, like on its side, and that would be the back of a bunny rabbit. And then you draw another C on its side, and that was the tail of the rabbit. And what she was trying to do is get me to speak with consonants like T and sh, SH, these sounds that even now, if I focus on it, it's difficult. But I learned through kind of drawing those, and then she would make me write a poem about this rabbit, and I had to so there was a second story on the rabbit, and that became the rabbit's head. Even though this was an Eskimo's house, I had to say Eskimo's house about 20 times. In the Eskimo's house, draw the front door, and then draw the second story of the Eskimo's house, the bunny rabbit's head, and then draw some smokestacks. And then she would you draw like an ear of a rabbit and the other ear of the rabbit. So those were the smokestacks. And I would say smokestacks, like out of the side of my mouth. And I don't know why I had that weird diction. It also relaxed me enough to not stutter, and I think I just was a pretty bundled up, didn't understand the world kid, and it was hard for me to enunciate in general, So that was a really long thing. And then I got to write, poems about my bunny rabbit, poems about my cat, poems about whatever, right? And that turned into music. So she encouraged my parents to get a piano. My grandpa had an upright that they didn't use, so they moved the piano over to our house, and all of a sudden I had an instrument, and that took me into another world, another space. So I really started songwriting about everything, because it was like, oh, poetry and music, and this has rhythm. I'm like, clapping it out and then playing it. And so I spent a couple years playing by ear. Then my mother, I think I was about 7, took me to a conservatory, and I learned to actually understand the concept of music, the mathematical patterns and the chord structures, and and that was really liberating for me, because it meant that when I was listening to music, I could think about how I would interpret that when I played it. And that was kind of a great imaginary space or a release. Because, like I said, you didn't have Instagram to, blindly scroll through for hours and hours, or any of that stuff that people do at that age now. So yeah, it was a really exciting period of my life, because I could express myself, and actually grew that into somewhat of a talent, to where people went, oh, she's the one who plays music. She's the one who sings. She's the one.
Did you ever stutter when you were singing?
No, never, not once.
Isn't that
not
interesting? Once. I wonder why that is.
I think it's because you memorize the words and you're prepared. um, kind of like, I guess because you're totally prepared, the script doesn't change. You're not in a situation where someone could ask you a question that could put you off, you know. So that was a safe kind of way to express yourself.
I bet. So when did your parents start to, or even yourself, start to take music more seriously?
I didn't really take it very seriously. I didn't study music in uni. I played in the band at uni, in high school. And I was, I did things. I was in the choir. I sang in my church and did all the usual things that Midwestern kids do. And I went to university and didn't really do much music at all. My mom had been a dance teacher, so she had taught me dance from a very young age, and I was more focused on dance when I got to uni, and wanted a U.S. National Dance Championship. Was a U.S. All-American for that, and was really more focused on the physical of life, I guess, and my studies, and I didn't really think about music as much. I played, like I always had a band, but nothing serious. Like, oh, we'll play over at the the local whatever fraternity house for this party that's going on, or whatever that was. I did that a bit, and then I ended up having children and moving to the south of France. And my children were very small, and my husband left me, and that's when I decided to get serious about music. When I had 3 tiny kids, I thought, well, what am I going to do in the south of France? So I'll just find a record deal, like out of nowhere, And these weren't the days where just record labels were online. They didn't have websites. We're talking AOL.com, and you had a dial-up modem, and it went when you phoned something, right?
Yeah.
But somehow I made a connection with a lawyer, and I'd written a bunch of songs, and I'd gone there was a local studio, luckily, and just a few miles away from my house. And I went down to that studio. Actually, a friend introduced me to the guy who owned it, and he's like, "Oh, I've got some stuff I'd like you to demo for me." And so I started demoing some stuff in English, so he could send it off to Paris to get deals. Like, he was working for Sony and stuff. And I was involved in Sony Digital. I was doing digital artwork for them. And I was like, oh, this could be actually a cool gig. You just pay me to sing your songs. That's easy. And then so he was like, one day he asked me, he's like, so do you write? Do you do anything? I said, oh, yeah, I've got all these songs. I'm like, playing them all and everything. So he recorded me, and he said, look, if you sing my tunes, I'll record you and we'll, create a demo of your records. And I was like, okay, great. And I didn't know what I was doing. But anyway, eventually my husband left me, and I had these demos, and I thought, well, I'll just go get a record deal. And because that's what all moms of 3 kids whose husband lives in does, it's like, it's like, not the general kind of direction you would go. But anyway, I did it. I think I was crazy at the time. But I ended up getting a record deal, and I got sent over to the UK, and I was able to tour with a lot of the artists in the UK and spent a lot of time. I went to I did like 40 or 50 dates at pretty big venues in a period of a couple of years, and really enjoyed it. But, hauling your kids around and how my parents fly over to look after them and things like that. And then there was this thing that was going on called piracy at the time, because the MP3 was, catching up with the music industry. So one night, I think I got drunk, had a few drinks or whatever, and my new husband decided he would write some letters to the piracy people who were, ripping off everybody's music, and that wasn't cool. Anyway, long and short, ended up getting a big fight with Pirate Bay, and that kind of propelled me, because I'd been designing applications, just website applications and little, databases for companies and things like that at the time. And at some point, we went, okay, I think it's time to change the face of the music industry. And that's what we aimed to do, was to convince the music industry that there was a model where music streaming and downloads would overtake CDs. And so we built a platform And eventually we got it to 14.5 million users. This was before, iTunes and Apple and Spotify and all these things were around, but they did come along. About 2 years into our roadmap, Spotify was able to raise around 20 million. And then literally 2 months after that, there was this massive recession. The banks were getting turned off. They're like, well, you won't be able to get money out of the ATMs anymore, and venture capital kind of shut down, and we hadn't raised our round. And so we were living on, the money coming in from advertising revenue, and it got really bleak at some point. And we were like, okay, how do we salvage this? How do we change the model? And so basically we ended up, selling off the technology we built, because we built a lot of infrastructure, pretty interesting stuff at that time. Now, probably everyone can build these things, but at the time we were kind of cool. And I started going into another industry. I went into the beauty industry and started selling nail polish, just as one does. So just like, this is an opportunity. I don't think women are get their nails done anymore, so why don't I sell these at-home kits? And it turned out it worked, and we were selling them on Groupon and all over Europe, all over everywhere. And that's how we made it through the recession. And I got tired of that, and I thought, I really want to go back into something that's creative again. So I started working with companies, and here I am today, a decade later, starting another startup. So I get interested in things that I think can change the world or really help people. And that was what that was doing for the music industry. Unfortunately, someone's trying to call me on my computer. 2 seconds. No.
They can't get you on your phone. They're going to try you on your computer.
Yeah. I know, right? You turn everything off, and then they go like, oh, I know how I can get her.
There's one more way.
There's one more way I can get a hold of her.
Next, I'm doing smoke signals, or I might just go outside or knock. I don't know. How about knock on her door like a normal person would do? That's an incredible story. I love it. That's an incredible story. I'm going to play our next song. Gotta love Aretha Franklin, right? Respect.
I know, right? So for me, this is a really early memory. The Blues Brothers, the movie, right? And she's in the kitchen. And I watched that over and over and over again, because her tone is just something else. It's almost like she wasn't singing.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm screaming this, but I'm not. She could, because of all the emotion that she expresses in her voice, but her tone was just, and I never seen anything like that before. So I think out of everybody, everybody was in that movie, right?
Yeah.
Ray Charles, it was such an incredible film. And being a Midwesterner, they started the movie out in Jake and Elwood, right? One of them was getting picked up from the penitentiary, and it's a penitentiary in Terre Haute, Indiana, where I was born, right?
No way.
So I'm like, oh my gosh, they're driving through. That's how we go to Chicago, Mom. And so we had that on VHS tape, and I would play that literally every weekend, just for the music, because I didn't have those records.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so Aretha Franklin holds a really special place in my childhood for sure. And that song in particular, because that's the one she's singing in the kitchen, and she's mad at her man because he's going to go play with this band, and he's going to drive up to Chicago, and she's totally pissed off. And I was just like, oh, I love this, it's just a fun movie, right? So, yeah, the music in that movie is, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Do you remember the first album you bought? Or cassette tape you bought?
Album. See, I was always buying 45s, It was Casey Kasem's top 40 or the Billboard top 100, and you go in the record shop, and you wouldn't spend your lunch money, and it'd be like $1.25, and you pick up like a 45, and you get the one that had the flip side, and you look at the back side of it and go, yeah, And then you'd be like, Wayne, well, is it this one or is it that one? But I didn't really buy an album until I was.
Well, what was your first 45 that you bought? Do you remember?
Oh, what was it? I don't know. That's a good question. I think it was Madonna's Holiday.
Oh, was it? I used to love that. I even did a lip sync to that song growing up.
Holiday.
I saw this. I seen Samantha Fox do "Touch Me" on TikTok the other day, and it just like all of a sudden I was like, oh my god, I did this song as a lip sync in grade 7, which. What the hell? Like, in front of the whole school, like, the teachers must have been like, what the fuck is going on with this girl? We need to shut this down. I couldn't even believe it. I just started laughing. Did you do lots of lip syncs and stuff like that in high school?
Oh, all the time. Everybody did it. The lip syncing. I guess, yeah, I think when you talk about 45s, I think I had 45s that were given to me, but the first one I actually did buy was Madonna Holiday. And I think the actual first album I ever bought was Purple Rain, because I remember putting it in, you know, and listening to When Doves Cry and giving it wow, you know, and that whole album, like, and I played it over and over and over, like, you know how it was like, oh. Yeah, and then you get sick of it and you put it away for a while. Yeah, and you want to know all the songs, and just in case they might come on the radio, because you didn't ever know which tune they were going to release.
Yeah, and now that's what I miss.
Also, I instead of buying records, a lot of times I had the cassette tape out, and I was waiting for the DJ to stop and pushing the record button.
I miss that so much with music, because back then I felt like, you know, you go buy a cassette or you go buy an album, you're listening to everything. Mm-hmm. So even if this song kind of sucked, you learn to love it.
Yeah.
Because you're like, whatever, I'm just going to listen to it. Now, I think they took away the joy of that.
Yeah. It's like because it's all about singles, and there's not really a total story to it. I mean, some artists get that and they're trying to keep that, you know. I think Beyonce's been pretty good about keeping a theme or keeping that idea of the album, but a lot of people are just like, well, it's single after single, so you miss out on it. You miss out on that listening of what was somebody thinking about at that moment or in that time, or where's the thread with it throughout the album that, you know, that makes you realize that was from that album. It's a shame, you know, because we'll never have another David Bowie if that continues, right?
I know. All right, next song.
When we gon' get there, I'm so sick of fucking waiting here. I've been sweating bullets, hope my moment it don't disappear. Hope the end ain't getting near, illusion ain't so fucking clear. Sick of always driving, never looking in my...
Get there, hippie sabotage. I've never heard that song before. I love it. I was like, this is totally cool.
I think it was like, I think that song, the attitude in it just really strikes me a lot. You know, I think that it's kind of that when you're in a certain type of mood, you're like, you just want to like, jam a little bit. And for me, it's like, I like songs where I can like moving my shoulders and I'm like getting in the groove, and you know, you're loosening up your spine and you're like, this is really, you like, there's something about it that's cool. So
when you were performing, what was a fan favorite that they always wanted you to kind of play on stage?
Like as the cover, or? No,
just like of your own song. Like, was there a song that they were like, you got to make sure that you play this song every single show?
Probably Oh Me, Oh My, because the whole audience sang it along, you know, and there was kind of a play with the audience, and they knew all the lyrics, like, and everyone's had that kind of bad day where their shower's broken and they're like, fuck, I need a plumber. This is like really shit, you know, that kind of stuff. And I think that it was one of those songs that the band had fun playing as well. So
what is it like playing for an audience that sings your music back to you?
It's pretty fun. It's kind of the first time it happens, you're like, oh, they've heard this, like it's been on the radio, right? So it kind of takes you aback, is because you spend all those years where if you play singer-songwriter music or you played in bands with original music, you have some fans that are kind of like, they're always going to be your fans. They follow you around. They like love it. They hang out with the band. They go out for drinks afterwards, and they're like that kind of vibe. But when you're playing bigger venues, and you realize, okay, a lot of people have heard this music because it's been on the local radio and people have been playing it, and the DJs is like, know you're coming in on this tour or whatever. It kind of takes you back. You're like, wow, and it's very humbling. I remember crying, like, yeah, I think it's the same. I had, there were a couple of times in music where the first time I really got emotional and taken aback was when the Irish Film Orchestra played one of my songs.
No way.
And actually, it played 6 of my songs, and I was like, "This is amazing! How did they even, interpret it this way or whatever?" And then the second time was, I think we're in Manchester, and the whole crowd was, the band literally stopped because they were singing, and I just kind of stood there like, wow, I was so touched, and it was hard not for me, if I feel so touched, not to express that and say like, that really touched me so much. And it was pretty fun era in my life.
Yeah. Did you have any stalkers?
I had people who, not stalkers. I mean, I had people who would continually write emails or would continually, but nobody like that I think was stalking, but I probably wouldn't have noticed anyway back then. I was like in a different zone. Just in my thoughts a lot, I'd gone through a little bit of trauma emotionally, and music was kind of that cathartic thread for me. And I was very aloof in my own space, in my own head, really thinking a lot during that period. So I associate the musical period of my life to the musical period where I was performing, to a lot of me, creating a new me, or coming out of that, coming out a lot of my experience and growing up inside of myself a lot more. Kind of that coming into more of a maturity and realizing that life's not all what you think it's going to be. And, sometimes when you crash and burn or something goes wrong, you learn so much afterwards.
Yeah.
And that was my afterwards period, if you know what I mean, that healing period and that processing period and that understanding period of how humans work in a lot of ways, and I think music is a really great catalyst for that, for a lot of people, because those experiences that any artist shares, whether they're a heavy metal artist or whatever the genre is, they're all telling a story.
Yeah.
And these are all stories that humans relate to an extent.
Yeah.
Unless it's some crazy goth shit and it's like, really insane.
Screamo metal, and you're like, oh, seriously, I have no idea what you're saying, but it sounds really cool for half an hour. You're like, I need the subtitles. I need a subtitle. Have you ever had a fan approach you with like a heartwarming story about maybe something that your music did for them?
Oh yeah, I've had a lot of those. Gosh, probably one of the biggest ones was I did a song called "Sweet Things," and it was a single, and it's really about like what life throws you and what you miss in it. What you miss in life more than anything. And a lot of people miss the sweetness, the lovely moments in life because they're so busy worried about something else. And sometimes it's, kind of like don't let life pass you by kind of vibe. And so there was a kind of narrative that I would say before I would sing the song, and it was on the album. And a woman said, I have ovarian cancer, and I have this whole group of women who look after me. And at the time I was doing these home concerts. So there were these contests, and people could submit, and I would go to their house, and they could have as many people as they wanted,
wow.
50, 100 people. And I would turn up at their door. It didn't matter where they lived. We'd fly over there, bring the band, or sometimes it was just me, an acoustic guitar, and another player. And we'd turn up and do these gigs. And one of the gigs was this ovarian cancer group. And a lot of those women died. But they wrote in, and we went there, and it was kind of an amazing experience, you know. That and they just really enjoyed it. They were so loving. They cooked like a whole ton of foods, you know, food and stuff, and that was in London. Yeah, and that was that was probably one of the most touching stories, you know, because a couple of ladies died literally within a few days of that.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
It's amazing to meet so many people that are so diverse. I think music's one of those things that holds so many people together in so many different ways. That experience of music is, I think, music and technology are the two things that really don't have much of a barrier. For people, that's where we can all come together a lot of times, and I think that was really a pretty amazing point in my life as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right, next song.
I need a dollar, that's what I need.
I love it. I need $1. Don't we all?
Well, this story is pretty crazy. Like, that's Aloe Black, and about something like, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years ago, I got a letter from my aunt, and she was telling me about, oh, you know, you need to write a song, you need to do this and that. And she's like, well, why don't you write a song? You know, remember, money's too tight to mention. And there's this other song that's out by a guy called Aloe Black. It's called I Need a Dollar. And this song had just come out. And my aunt was dying of cancer. And so for some reason, she writes about this in her letter. And so fast forward 10 years, and I was like, oh, this is a great song. I really love this song. Like, I really like Aloe Black. And so fast forward, and now with Wedo, a good pal of mine who was a backing vocalist for Whitney Houston, you know, we were having a chat. And she's like, you know, I'd like to get involved with Wedo. She had been involved in Tunes, the other music platform. I was like, yeah, you know, you'd be brilliant. And one morning, I was typing to our marketing officer, and I was like, look, you know these Aloe Black songs, right? Like, everything he's saying about equality, about, you know, all the underlying themes to his music really resonates with our Wedo story, like what we're about as a company. And I was like, I think this might be really good for one of our adverts, and this might really be good. It might really be good to, you know, see how we can maybe get a sync license for his music. The very next day, literally the very next day, and I found this letter a few days beforehand, by the way, and I started going down memories of my aunt. She's passed away, and it's like unbelievable. I get up. I'm not one of these people who looks at Instagram at all. I'm not a social media person very much. You know, I see what's going on every once in a while, but I get up, it's like Sunday morning. I just had this conversation with my CMO day before. And there's this gal, Patty, my friend, who was a backing vocalist for Whitney, standing on Instagram in a photo with Aloe Black. So I'm giving it. I'm a full Patty, right? And she's in California, so it's my morning. It's like in the middle of her night, right, on a Sunday. And so I'm phoning her up, and I'm like, Patty, listen. I saw that photo of you and Aloe. Get him on the phone. I need to talk to him today. And so she gets him on the phone, right? So we get on a Zoom call later on that day. And I'm like, Aloe, you know, I need you to get involved in this company. And so he's now an advisor and shareholder in our company. And you know, he has the same ethos, I think, of us. But the story of that song, it reminds me so much of my aunt. And for some reason, she planted that seed, you know. And there's other stories too. And he just appeared into life in a very short period of time. And I think it's interesting because sometimes people can make you think of things and you see the future, or there's something, I don't know, a little bit spiritual about why did I find that letter? Why we're discussing that? Why the next day, all of a sudden he appears. So I have a really kind of spooky affinity with that on a kind of more ethereal kind of, I don't know, spiritual level, I guess.
Yeah, I love it. I do want you to share your company. Like share Wedo. Where did it start? How did it originate? Why did you want to get started? And then really, where is it now?
Yeah, so Wedo is a financial services banking app really on the back end. But what we do is we supply audio, video, calendar, invoicing, contracting, and a debit card, and you can literally run your business with it. So let's say you're a contractor of some sort, or you're a musician and you sell tickets, whatever that is, you can use the platform to live stream and collect payments in real time. And so what we do is we give you a debit card. We do bank account. It keeps track of all of the gigs you do. So whatever that is, if it's a concert, or if it's a one-to-one, or maybe you're developing an app for someone, or you're developing a website, or whatever you do. And it allows you to take payments instantly with no upfront cost. And I feel like in a world where knowledge is so important, where like half the world's workforce is going to be freelance by 2027, 52% in fact. I feel as though we're creating too many barriers. Everything's pay to play. It's ridiculous. Upwork and Fiverr take 20%. PayPal takes a huge chunk. Banks take a huge chunk. It's getting ridiculous, and you're paying for constant SaaS. You're paying for your QuickBooks or whatever. You're paying for Zoom. You're paying for this. You're paying for whatever you're streaming on, whatever. And I thought, there's a way to solve this. If you're the bank and you're a financial institution, the money can come through the interchange when there's financial transactions, and you can take a small transaction on the flow of the money, and provide a real service that people use, not just some calculator. We're way beyond that now, right? The banks need to do a bit more.
Yeah.
And so I thought, why don't we do that? So I decided we'd become a bank. And it was really one morning I woke up. I'd been a freelancer for quite some time and done lots of consulting work. I'd been like interim COO, CMO, CEOs for other companies. And I thought, what? My dad used to say this thing, if you want to beat the bank, you got to be the bank. And I thought, what? That's the answer. Like, I all of a sudden it dawned on me. I jumped out of bed. I'm like, if you want to beat the bank, you've got to be the bank. And I thought, what? That's like so Robin Hood, right? To think about it, but you can provide amazing technology and amazing services, and either you make people pay to play, or you have an advertising revenue model where you're the kind of the victim of that because your data is being sold, or you find another solution. And the one solution that's out there is the financial services industry. Like, they have more middlemen, and there's more juice in there, and it's the one way you can do something without like really cheating people. If you take a hold of that and turn it into something that's valuable for people so they can run their business properly. Because banks always talk about how we'll help you with your business. Here's a business loan. And by the way, over time, you're going to pay gazillion% on, So we thought, okay, why not give people tools that they need in an economy where, we're moving towards a very strong knowledge-based economy. Everything's about communication, about, podcasts, about information. And moving into an information age, you need to be able to supply that mass of the society tools that they need. So that's what Wedo does. We provide audio and video chat rooms where you can grow a community. You scroll up, you can have a big audience. If you're doing a podcast, for example, like you have a lot of people who follow you with Music Junkies, your podcast audience could actually come to your shows, and you could sell tickets to that. And they could raise their hand, ask questions. You can say, well, the audience have this question, and it's almost like running a webinar, but you could earn money or get sponsorship through that and be paid through the application in real time on that moment at that time. Who's there, so you've got information on your listeners. At least that they attended. You can reach out to them and let them know, and it's more of a community that you can form around it. Yeah.
So how can somebody find this information, or get in touch with, not necessarily you personally, but how would we go about to create, have this application for ourselves?
You just go on the Apple Store or Google Play and download it. That's it.
That's it.
Sign up, we're available right now in Europe, UK. We launch in the United States in about 4 weeks. So you'll have it in North America, and you just right now, if you reserve your username, and I suggest you do because we have around 37,000 people on the wait list, so we'll be opening up the gates soon. But one of the things that a lot of people are concerned about, like for example, your name's Music Junkies, so you kind of want to reserve that, right? If it's a name you've developed and brand that you've built. And so we encourage people to reserve their username, even though we're not launched yet, just so that they have it.
So we can just go in there, reserve our username, and then we're golden.
Yeah, you can download the app, reserve your username. We'll kick out, you'll get an email and updates every once in a while saying, hey, we're going to bring you in. And when we bring you in, you'll see it. You'll get an alert on your phone. And then you can just start creating your community, like, having one-to-ones. You can do your podcast and record them on there, for example. It's audio and video. And we're rolling out just on Android and iOS first. And we've developed, we're reiterating for the bigger screens, all the way up to television screens. So you can have more of a Zoom kind of experience. But we started with mobile because it's so handy, and a lot of apps forget to do mobile, especially in the video space.
Yeah, that's incredible. So, I love it. I'm excited. I want to do that because I do want to do live, but again, I always feel like I don't know how to use TikTok for that, and I don't know, and I just feel like even when I casually jump into like an Instagram live thing or a TikTok thing, just because I want to see what it kind of looks like, it's very busy, and I don't like that. The things scrolling up and like flowers and dicks. I don't know what's happening, and then I'm getting like. So like what's going on? And I don't want to be like that if I'm interviewing somebody and I'm like, oh, somebody just sent us a dick. That's awesome. Okay, well, like next question or whatever it is. And I also want it to be more interactive. I do want to go and create that space where I can have somebody and they can ask a question. I think that would be amazing to do. Yeah, so I'm excited. Yeah. I'm excited for you.
Well, you can do it however you want. You can keep it closed and just use it to, do a one-to-one like we're doing right now. Or you can invite people in who may want to ask a question, or you might want to just have them pop in to say hi or, surprise somebody. But the power of actually being able to have 200 or 300 people who could, listen to you, or even up to 1 million people who could be part of that audience is pretty cool. And you can turn them off. You don't have to they can't open their mic unless you invite them to come up and talk and things like that. So
that's amazing.
It's not going to ruin the stage or anything, but yeah. So that's what we're doing.
I love it. All right. We're on your last song. You ready?
Okay.
I love it. We had this song. We were in Montana one year. We used to go every year prior to COVID, and at 4 a.m, I woke up to this song, and it was just a bunch of guys sitting around the table, and I was like, what is going on? So they're 9 to 5 by Dolly Parton, and I'm like, what is happening? And that's the only part that they were singing. They didn't know all the other just like working 9 to 5, and like they're in a massive conversation, and then when that part came on, that's what they would sing, and I was it was a lot.
Yeah, I love Dolly Parton's voice. I think it's a brilliant song. I think that she tells really great stories. And I remember when the movie came out, the song was hugely popular, still is. It gets played in clubs right now all over the world, right? But I love this just sort of stumble out of bed and travel to the kitchen, roll myself a cup now. I love that. And I used to play that on the piano. I mean, it was like a tune, like I was a dum dum dum. It was like so much fun to play because you're like, like that, And so I just think it brings back really happy memories of a time when, women, the story actually of the film and the insight of her writing, because it was mainly women, right, who were working in this 9 to 5 scenario. It was a man's world, right, and I feel like it was like her burn your bra moment. She's like, I'm really pissed off. These men, they run the world. Like, fuck it, I'm writing this song. I don't care if I offend anybody. And you can feel that emotion in the way she wrote that. And I just think it's a great song. It's a great tune, and she's having fun with it. But it tells you a lot about the times, It really does.
Yeah, it really does. Where can we find you, Indy? Like if we just want to check you out on social media or anything that we kind of talked about today.
Indiana Gregg is my handle. So Indiana like the state, and Gregg with 3 G's, Gregg. Just about everywhere. Twitter and Insta shit and Facebook and all the horrible other things I'm on. And then, just drop, anybody can feel free to send a message if you have something insightful to say or an encouraging word. I like those.
Yeah, I like those too.
Back.
So I'm going to give you a chance to give some of that back. I'd like to always ask my guests to leave us with some words of wisdom. With all the adversity, stuff you've been through, somebody listening, what are some encouraging words of wisdom you'd like to leave?
I think there's a lot to be said, when you go through something tough in your life, no matter what it is, remember that there are silver linings, because there really are. I think we're kind of built to have resilience. And if we just got past it, I think our minds are amazing in the sense that we control our thoughts. And I think this is really probably the most valuable thing I can offer. You always control your thoughts no matter what. And it's up to you to deflect them. And I use little darts that I throw at my thoughts and go, get the fuck out of here, with them. I mean, I hit like these little bubbles in my mind if I have thoughts that would hold me back. I think perseverance always beats resistance. And whatever you're going through in your life, that if you have a dream or have something you want to pursue, then do it, because you can remake and reinvent yourself, and life's not just a one-trick pony. You don't have to have one career or one situation. Use your gifts. There's a good sense of there's a good reason why you have the gifts you have, and at that, those gifts can help drive you into things that help you fulfill your purpose. And purpose is something that I feel is really important. Purpose is about who you are as a human being, what makes you really feel alive. And if you migrate towards that, you'll find that the silver linings are magical.
Wow, so, yeah. I love that. I needed to hear that today. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us today on Music Junkies. It was so insightful. It was such a pleasure to have you. I loved your stories. I really didn't know what to expect, because we didn't know each other. Obviously we didn't get that to have that connection. My connection was through your PR person. Yeah. So you never know.
I really appreciate you, and I'm really grateful you've had me, and real pleasure. Had a lot of fun. You've brought back so many memories. It's wonderful. Really wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.